Continuing with our Steven Universe future theory trend that we've had going on for the last couple weeks now, we're going to talk more about Steven Universe future today. This is another one that I've seen bouncing around in some form or another. I've even mentioned it a couple of times on this channel in videos. But it's not exactly going to take the form that I think some of you guys are expecting. So I'm going to jump right into it, get right to it. I'm actually very excited to talk about this one because it's something I've been headcanoning for a while. And again, while I've talked about it kind of offhandedly here or there, I haven't really explained myself. And I do like to explain myself. It's kind of the whole premise of this channel. So today we're going to be talking about why Steven's pink power is only now starting to manifest. And of course, as per usual, there's an easy answer to this. There's even a couple of easy answers. Kind of like with my last theory, where the easy answer to the question of why Homeworld is broken into pieces is that they took mining on Homeworld further than they usually take mining planets, and it caused extra damage. The easy answer here is that Steven gained access to his pink powers when he refused with Pink Steven. And I do think that that could still kind of be true. That maybe that sort of fully unlocked those powers and he would have come into them more slowly later on if he came into them at all, had he not been separated from Pink Steven and then refused with him. Because I do think that Pink Steven having fully reformed and then physically fused with Steven does mean that Steven now, his nature is slightly different than it was before that happened. But I think there's another reason, and it stems from the fact that if you look at Steven's use of those powers, he's definitely had opportunity to use them before they first manifested, and yet he didn't use them until they manifested because they didn't manifest until they did. And obviously that's a clearly obvious statement. Like, of course they didn't manifest until they manifested, but why didn't they? Like, why didn't they manifest during his fight with Spinel, for example, if refusing with Pink Steven was the only prerequisite to using them? Refusing with Pink Steven and then being put in a situation where he would need them, right? And I've said before, and this is the other easy answer, I think, that it probably comes down to puberty. His body changing helped trigger those powers, that they are part of the change for being like him. At least that's what I've implied, because I wanted to keep the exact subject matter of this theory a secret, and I do think that that's a fine theory in and of itself, but that's actually not what I'm going to be theorizing today, and not what I think is happening. Now, to be clear, I do think that puberty, in a less direct way, is responsible for these powers manifesting now. But I think it's more that puberty got him to the point where those powers could successfully manifest, rather than them just being something that came with puberty itself. Because, yes, Steven's kind of a late bloomer. It was very hard to tell he was as old as he was until just recently. But his body's done changing. It's been done changing since the movie. Like, puberty-wise. He had his growth spurt, his voice changed. It seems like, aside from some growing that he still has to do to reach, like, a fully adult state of being, the major puberty-related changes had already happened to Steven as of the movie, and yet when he's put in a situation where he would need those powers, a similar kind of situation to the one that Jasper put him in to discover them in the first place, they don't emerge. It's for that reason that I think that these powers emerged when they did, because that was the earliest that Steven's body was strong enough, structurally sound enough, I don't know how you'd say it, to support them. And that puberty just helped get him to that point. And I also think that might be one of the reasons why he's having trouble controlling these powers, because while his body is, and let's say structurally sound, because that's the funniest sounding way of putting it, his body is structurally sound enough to support them, but there's still a little too much for him and they're overwhelming him. I think my favorite example of something like this in recent popular media is the character of Izuku Midoriya, aka Deku, in My Hero Academia. Deku is a superhero in training. He's the inheritor of the quirk, aka superpower, of All Might, the #1 hero in the world. That particular quirk One for All is an all-around speed and strength enhancing superpower that can be passed from person to person and gets stronger each time. So in theory, Deku should be stronger than All Might, but he's not, because his body isn't structurally sound enough yet to withstand that power. If he uses too much of it, it overwhelms and harms him. And that's actually the leading reason fans think for why he has bolts of energy appear around him, because his body isn't large enough yet to contain that power, and so some of it's leaking out, because that's something that didn't happen to All Might. It's specific to him. All Might, of course, being a much larger, much bulkier person. And if you go back to the beginning of Deku's arc, he had to get his body to a baseline level of fitness and bulkiness just to be able to withstand the power in the first place without his limbs literally flying off. I think that something similar is what's happening to Steven. And my evidence for that is the time that Steven got similarly bulky to All Might, i.e. when he fused with his father to create Steg Multiverse. Because if you go back and rewatch that scene where Steg is playing the best song from the movie, Don't At Me, it really looks like Steg is using that pink power, doesn't it? And yes, Steven has used that power as part of a fusion again since then, but if we assume that one of the things limiting his access to that power was his lack of maturity as a human being, and we take the average ages of Steven and Greg and determine Steg's age as the average, Steg, physically, like in terms of human physicality, is a more physically mature person than Steven. And so if my take on that theory is correct, that explains not only why those powers would be available to him then, as that would remove that limiter, but it also explains how he's able to control them, because that more bulky body is better capable of channeling all that power without it bouncing back and overwhelming him. And even if my specific take on the theory isn't right, and it's just a puberty thing, again, Steg, physically speaking, is more mature than Steven. So if it is just a puberty thing, and Steven hadn't quite finished reaching the point of puberty or getting through puberty, whatever the triggering point of development was, Steg would definitely be at or past that point if Steven now, as of Steven Universe Future, is old enough to unlock the power. And like, I've seen some people who are arguing against versions of this theory online saying that, well, maybe that's not what Steg was doing, but what else could it be? The Crewniverse is very good at foreshadowing. It makes sense that they would leap at the chance to include a reference to the pink power that was going to be so big in the following season in the movie if they could find an excuse to do it. And if I'm right, Steg is the only excuse they could have found to do it. And it's visually consistent, too. Like, yeah, Steg doesn't show the exact same array of powers that Steven does in pink chaos control form, but neither did Smokey either. Smokey got a new power, just like Steg had that levitation and telekinesis power. I don't know what this means for the show. I don't even know for sure that it means anything for the show. This specific foreshadowing in the movie might simply be here so that people who care to understand why Steven is unlocking the powers now, as of Steven Universe Future, can go back and work backwards and deduce the reason why, just as I'm doing here. There may be no greater significance to it than that, but I still think it's super interesting, right? Like, Steg was extremely powerful. It honestly doesn't make sense why he's as powerful as he is, unless something like this is afoot. And even if there's not a reason specifically for a lore tidbit to be there, or a reference to be there, or a bit of foreshadowing to be there, aside from just to be there, I still like to be on top of this stuff. I still have fun figuring it out, and I think you guys enjoy the ride. So, hopefully you enjoyed this video too, and that's actually going to be it. That's really all I had to say about this one. I think that Steven has unlocked his pink power as of Steven Universe Future, not specifically because it's an aspect of his puberty, but because puberty got him to the point where he was capable of channeling it. There's my thesis and my conclusion. As per usual, I'd like to know, what did you guys think of any of the ideas that I put forth in this particular theory video? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. or over on my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.